these woods are something.
Yeah, I hear. You lose it here, you're in a world of hurt. This makes Ontario look like Quebec. One of the reasons that interests me in Sasquatch research is the challenge. There's nothing quite like it, other than perhaps hunting great white off the coast of Australia. It's that challenging.
Sky howdy, welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. So we got Blaine here to talk about MEGASQUATCH up in the far frozen northlands of the boreal forest where the hobgoblins and fisher cats live. Before we get to that, I'd like to remind everybody, if you're interested in helping the channel and you need protection online, go to ProXPN, PROXPN, get a VPN. The coupon code exclusively for this show is SAVE1975, and it's great service. I use them. I'm very happy with them, and you would be too. And a small portion of it would go to help this channel. Also, you can also check out My CBD, which we have up on the screen right now. And if you need CBD products available in all 50 states and all sorts of countries, check it out. Works great. 60-day money-back guarantee. If you want to directly help the channel and become a partner, I need the help. I'm not being monetized on YouTube right now, completely defunded on YouTube. So if you want to reach out and help, it is paypal.me/World Bigfoot Central, and you can donate to the cause to keep this show coming to you. And with that being said, let me welcome back onto the show again to World Bigfoot Radio, Blaine Tyler. Welcome back, man.
Hey, how's it going, Duke?
Going pretty good here. We got 40 degrees today, and the giant glacier outside is starting to melt finally, and so that's all a good thing. It means I can get back out and get out in the field, do some squatching here pretty soon, without having to have a snowmobile or a dog team.
Yeah, actually, I've been driving by some snowmen with a lot of knives, and some of them beheaded recently.
People getting kind of burned out on the snowman thing. Yeah, you start seeing that where they have snowmen and people have you can see the tracks where they come running from the street, do a flying sidekick and take the head off, and then the tracks go back out onto the street.
Yeah. I really hate to break it, but I think the groundhog guy lies. I think he's paid or something. I don't know.
Paid off Punxsutawney Phil. Yeah, I think they got a stand-in. I don't see how that could possibly be the same groundhog. And, subsequent generations, their weather prediction skill may have diminished somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we got another little winter storm today.
Us northern squatchers, we envy the people down south because this is the time of the year when they can actually get out there and do something without getting, like chomped by an alligator or bit by a water moccasin or something. And this is the time of the year where we're stuck indoors going, well, this sucks. Hope you guys find something and produce more videos for us to watch because it's really boring up here right now.
The polar vortex sucks.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I'm over here in the far western side of the Rockies, so we don't get the same kind of weather that you guys get. But I understand you've been getting the old-fashioned winter this year.
Oh yeah. It's like 6 months long. We got 2 seasons up here now: winter and winter.
Getting ready for winter.
Yeah. Winter. You leave the snow tires on all year round now.
Yeah. The only difference is then you just put on the chains during the snow months and you have them off for the 6 weeks that it's not snowing.
Yeah, and you go out and you shovel off your deck and you try to get your suntan in with the snow around you.
Yeah, actually the snow is helpful. It works as a reflector. If you get it warm enough, you paint the deck black, so the middle part you shoveled out's nice and warm, and you lay on that, and then the snow will reflect all of the sun around it, and it'll gather up even more.
Yeah, you got a good.
We know all the tricks for getting that foundation tan up in northern Minnesota during the winter.
Yeah, I don't know. It's getting crazy, these long winters. I thought it was supposed to be getting shorter. Wow.
Yeah, what happened to the global warming they've been telling us about? Once again, they failed to deliver. You can never trust globalists.
Yeah, I think that's just a cover story from flat earthers or something. I don't know.
A cover story. Alrighty then. Well, let's start talking about Bigfoot before everybody gets mad and wants to kill me. One of the things we were talking about before we started the recording is the interesting weird things that happen with cameras and trying to film these critters. And if you hear it from just like 1 or 2 people, you think, well, you had a bad day, or you forgot to charge this, or that happened, or something, blah, blah, blah. But when you start seeing it over and over and over and over and over again, it's obviously a pattern. There's something weird going on. And especially with electronic equipment. You want to address this, Blaine?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for everybody. I know I've heard people mention to me, comment on my videos, just general chat about some strangeness with when you're trying to record Sasquatch when you're in their area. I myself, I've had my camera shut down, and I've literally had a on-off fight with whatever was going on. Turn it on, the camera turns off, full battery, turn it back on, camera turns off. And then I've had physical things happen, like the flap to my, the viewfinder close. And in one occasion, after I cast some prints and I was just talking to the camera about what I just did, I started walking back to the camera and it flew off the rock I had it on right before, while I was reaching out for it. Got knocked off the rock.
There was no sound effect like an acorn hitting it thrown from the wood line or anything like that?
No, it was just, I was literally reaching for it, and then it just flew off the rock. Not flew off, but just whatever, a push or something, just strong enough to push it off and away from my hand. And after it was sitting there for whatever, I mean, I think I did 2 or 3 attempts at a video, and then wow, I thought that was really strange. And then you start looking around, right? you know something's not right when your cameras are flying through the air.
Yeah, I've experienced a phenomenon with apparently invisible things that can exert physical pressure. I was riding my bike and I had something actually broadside me, and it knocked the whole bike tire about a foot sideways, and there was literally nothing there. It felt like a human jogger ran into the bike from the side of it or something, and just about knocked off the bike. I was going really slow, luckily, otherwise I would have bit it. But yeah, it wasn't like there was a little mini quake. There was nothing around there. It was broad daylight, and everything around me was clear for 30 feet in every direction. You tell me. I have no idea. But, I can certainly believe that, there's something going on that we don't know about and can't see, because that was a prime example right there. Mid-afternoon, sunny day, and I'm putting really slow on my mountain bike, and all of a sudden something whacks the side of it and pushes the tire foot to the side.
Wow, that's pretty creepy cool. That's what I usually say. Try not to get weirded out too much because I have to go back into the woods.
Yeah, well, this wasn't even in the woods. This was in town, which has made it like a lot creepier and less cool.
Was it during the day, you said?
Yeah, this was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon in town that this happened.
Wow. It wasn't some angry grandmother that you just like
like I said, I was crossing an intersection. The one street was blocked off for road construction. So, I'm just like barely putting along, going across the street, and right out the middle of the street, it was just like something hit me, but there was nothing there. And at least 30 feet of clear pavement, and, other than the street crossing where I was going the other directions.
Well, I mean, couple 3 winters ago, I mean, I had that encounter. I put a video on it, and people were saying, well, where are the prints? But I don't know if you ever remember me telling you, or my show, where something walked right up behind me and purposely strode into my hand on the backswing while I was trudging along on a sled trail. And I punched this thing in the upper thigh, and it felt like I hit like a bodybuilder's leg. And I couldn't see it. And it really freaked me out. In fact, after that happened, I was kind of stunned or something. I had to go sit down, and just the time seemed to go by. And like 2 hours later, I came out of I don't know, shock or whatever it was. And then I just didn't want to go Bigfooting anymore. And I just went back to the car. But I couldn't see it. And it was right there in daylight. I think there was snowing a little bit. And just trudging along. You have to keep momentum when you're hiking on trails that snowmobiles have gone over. Because, get down. And the friggin' thing was right behind me somewhere. And it was, I could tell from how I hit the solid mass behind me that it was bigger than me, because it felt like the upper thigh muscle of something that has a thigh about a foot wide. And, I just slowed down, looked at my hand, looked over my shoulder a little bit. But, honestly, I didn't want to see some 8-foot tall Sasquatch standing 1.5 feet behind me or whatever. And
understandable.
Yeah, that's a true story. And, I always wanted to touch one, but, not like that. You want it to be like a mutual thing kind of thing, not just something bumping into you.
That almost goes beyond the thing that, we know that they have tricks where they're good at hiding, first of all. They know how to camouflage themselves, secondly. Thirdly, they got that hollow hair thing that tends to pick up the color, whatever it's next to, so that blends them in. So they got the blending thing going on. But I mean, blending, cloaking, you can almost use those 2 words interchangeably. This is almost like, flat out invisibility, which really makes you wonder if this is something that they can do, or if there's something else that's doing this, that's like maybe in the same areas that the Bigfoot are around or something. Because you do get these weird reports of this sort of stuff.
Well, I know from when I used to have my old shepherd that she'd be looking at something really close to us, and I'd be looking at the same area and not be able to spot what she's so afraid of. And then, if I could recall fast enough to fire up the camera and just film, maybe I can film something that I can't see. And sometimes, sure enough, there was things moving or something there that the dog seen that I couldn't see with my human eyes.
Well, yeah, dogs are more sensitive to that sort of thing than we are. I mean, when we were up in Coloma, and Jeff was trying to walk up to the top of the hill where the standing stones was in the dark, and the dog didn't want to come forward. Well, as it turned out in retrospect, when you looked at the video, it's because there was a huge friggin' Sasquatch standing about 10 feet away on the side of the trail watching you guys. And the dog seen it, and Jeff didn't. But, they're a perfect example. Like, their dogs are a lot more aware of their surroundings than we are. They got better senses. So it's better to follow their lead on that sort of thing. But, the other thing is with the cameras and stuff, there's some of the weird like you're saying, electromagnetic sort of interference too, like where you'll have the camera completely charged, and then all of a sudden it'll just be dead.
Yeah, I've had some weird things like that too happen. And, you know, when it's happening, you sort of accept it, that, you know, it's part of the factor that we don't understand about these beings. But, I mean, try to explain that. Try to explain that, like in a YouTube video where, you know, you're having this encounter and your camera's slammed down on you, or just drained, the whole battery drained in 5 seconds or something like that. And then you have to explain verbally the encounter without any visual evidence or whatever, and it makes it difficult. But there are these strange things that occur when you're researching the Sasquatch beings, and I don't know if it's interdimensional kind of thing why we can't see them, or they can just come and go and not leave prints. But I don't pretend to have the answers. I just kind of, for my own part, just try to accept that there's some strange things about them, and I just try to gather evidence of what I can. And some of the stuff, that weird stuff, I've never really talked about, because you can't explain it.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem too. I mean, if you have an experience like that, you know, like say you're trying to film a Bigfoot and all of a sudden your friggin' camera dies, and, you know, then you come back and you tell the encounter, well, I saw one, my damn camera died, blah, 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 blah. And most of the people that watch it are like, well, he's just making that up. And he's just saying his camera died because there was nothing there, and he didn't film it and stuff. And it's just like the few people in the crowd that have actually done Bigfoot research and have had this kind of weird crap happen to them are sitting there going, yep, I know, it's happened to us too. And then you don't have the evidence. And then everybody laughs at you and goes, oh, you didn't film it because there was nothing there. No, my damn camera died. You know?
Yeah. No, there's, I don't know, this is related to any kind of phenomenon, but there's also, I don't know if this is infrasound or something that they're just doing where, you know, you don't turn your camera on or you turn it off too soon or whatever, and whatever happens right after your gear, you shut down all your gear, and then there's a wood knock or a scream. Meanwhile, you've let your camera equipment roll and your audio equipment roll for 2-3 hours. And as soon as you shut it all down, sure enough, a scream or something runs across the path after you shut down your GoPro to save it for juice for another hike. And it's really weird how they can detect that kind of thing. And if you've ever watched some of my older videos where I didn't use GoPros, I used to just do it all manually, old school, and just turn and film them when they were stalking me or following me. And I've been wearing GoPros for the last couple of years or so, and there's been stuff happen behind me, and I checked the footage, and the GoPro's hasn't caught in anything, kind of like a mobile trail camera or something. So I might just go back to manually turning and filming them when I know they're close. But that's really weird how they can avoid trail cameras and the effect they have on cameras and battery life, and that's just part of the aspect of what we don't understand about them, I guess.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if they have some electromagnetic aspect to them too. I mean, some of this you can discount just by saying, well, infrasound, blah, 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 but some of it you can't. And, you know, like, how do you explain the batteries being drained at infrasound? Still waiting to hear that one. The other one is that I actually have a friend that I know that's a researcher. They got video of one of them sitting in a wood line peeking at them, and it actually zapped them as they were filming it. And if it was sonic, hyper, or sub, in other words, if it was infrasound, you would not expect to have a visual representation on the camera, but there was a little blip. There was a flash of light right as this thing tried to zap the person holding the camera.
Wow, that's interesting.
So, yeah, that tends to make me, again, say electromagnetic, not infrasound.
Yeah, there's definitely something going on with how they're avoiding, or, you know, like I think I mentioned in our pre-talk there, I've gone through 4 or 5 cameras. My field camera now has got a 20 meg camera, and taking a direct picture of them usually will end up being blurry. But so what I do is I'll shoot off to the right or left or whatever, like a kind of like a panoramic kind of things where they're not the focus. And so in some cases, I get a better shot where I'm not trying to focus in on the Sasquatch, and or you have something stupid happen, like a camera wants to focus in on the leaf or the branch in front of the Sasquatch and not the 8-foot creature standing behind. That's
yeah. Stupid camera, focus in on the Sasquatch, not the branch right next to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And then someone's saying, see, it was just that 2,000-pound creature was just a leaf. And you're like, well, yeah, because the camera automatically went to the closest point of interest or something. And so, I'm always adjusting what I do, trying to compensate for all their little tricks and stuff like that. And
well, and then you got to wonder about the program in the computer too, in the camera. It's like, why? How does it differentiate on what it wants to focus in on? Does the camera need to believe that Bigfoot's real before it'll focus in and take a picture? And otherwise, it's never going to focus in, and it's always going to be blurry. Or like that one comedian said, that it's not the problem with the camera; it's that Bigfoot is blurry. Bigfoot itself is just blurry, and that's even scarier. We've got a huge blurry monster running around the woods that we can't even take a decent picture of.
I know. No, I mean, I get that, and when I'm out researching, I find it better off not to try to purposely film them, but you actually have more success with kind of accidentally on purpose. That's what I call it. Where, where they are, but you're not looking at them. You're not pointing.
I know other researchers that do that, and they're like looking one direction and pointing the camera the other direction. That seems to be generally when they catch them.
Yeah, because they're watching you, right? They're
watching where you're looking, not where the camera's pointed. That seems to be where they blow it.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you're out, I guess I'll give this little tip. What I did was, I don't know if you've ever seen this, like these little mini monopods, about 6 inches long or so. I guess, I don't know, you put them on a desk or something, but you put one of those on your cameras, and that allows you to rotate the camera without having to really break your wrist as far as where you're pointing it. It's a lot smoother. So that's what I do sometimes when I'm trying to film like that. Just kind of spin it around.
Right on.
Well, because your hand, with the hand cameras, your hand's got to be kind of wrapped around the camera, so that means your forearm's pointing up, and it's very obvious what you're trying to point the camera at. Whereas the other one, you can just kind of spin like a monopod kind of rotation.
Yeah, they don't notice that arm movement going on, so they maybe don't notice that the camera is like slowly swiveling and changing position.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Or it's less aggressive or something, I don't know, or the juvies don't understand it, and so they get up and run for the tree. And
quick, he's looking the other way, run for it.
Yeah.
The camera yeah. Damn juvie, now I'm gonna have to zap his camera.
The little buggers, yeah. So, but I've also run into the giant ones too.
Well, speaking of the giant ones, let's get on the topic for today's show, which is giant squatch up there. And let me preface this by saying that, I'm the mountain giant guy. I get the mountain giant reports, and I go and look into this stuff. And we're not really specifically referencing mountain giants here. These are just reports of exceptionally large Bigfoot that seem to be sort of clustered up in Ontario and around that area, where a bunch of these are coming in. So not that they couldn't be other places, but this may be one of those situations where you've got the Bigfoot equivalent of a Zulu tribe, where the local population of Bigfoot are sort of, isolated geographically, and they tended to have larger individuals, and they weren't getting the outsiders coming in and joining their troops and stuff, so they tended to get bigger and bigger and bigger. There's really no limit to how much land and food they've got. It's gigantic. I mean, second biggest landmass on Earth as a country besides Russia is Canada. And Ontario is huge. And it's mostly all forest. So there's plenty of places for them to be living, making a living, getting all the food they need. So just in the perspective of, could the environment support something like this? Yes, absolutely. No question. The interesting thing here is that there does seem to be several reports from this area of these really huge, ginormous Bigfoot. And since Blaine is the dude up in this area. I thought it would be fun to have him on to talk about this, and then the Sasquatch Dunes accidental on purpose video that he got too, and do a whole show about it. So with that, I'll just let Blaine take it away.
Well, I guess before I get into the dunes, first I ever heard about Sasquatch, way above 10 feet was Bighorn Dam out near Nordegg, BC. I guess that was back in '69, I think. I might be wrong about that, but 5 witnesses watched this 15-footer at the edge of the tree line while they were working on the dam. And it's in John Green's book, in one of his books, probably Apes Among Us or something. And then, but if you want to go back further, there's the giant one that picked up, turned upside down, and dropped the trailer full of culverts at Bluff Creek back in the 50s. And that was like during the lunch hour while the guys were all sitting down having their lunch, and they all went running over to see what the heavy crash was. And I think MK Davis found one of the culverts that was from the trailer, but they were also throwing these heavy culverts into the bush, into the trees. It wasn't just the one occasion where a whole trailer and a trailer full of strapped down culverts got tipped over. They were actually picking these up and throwing them into the trees, picking up 300-pound drums of diesel fuel and throwing them around like soccer balls. And if you want to go back even further, I recall First Nation tribe, I think Pacific Northwest. Obviously, there's lots of history between the First Nations and the Sasquatch. But in this particular case, the village people, the First Nation people in this village, noticed a 15-footer at the edge of the tree line watching their village. And knowing the history with encounters and abductions and other worse scenarios, they had that village all packed up by lunch, and they all jumped in their canoes and moved whatever could fit miles and miles downstream away from the Sasquatch, because they had nothing to defend themselves against any kind of attack or abduction attempt or whatever the Sasquatch was becoming interested in. So
that's really telling too when you think about it, because that isn't just like, let's hitch up the travel trailer on the truck and we'll go to the local diner for lunch or something. This is pack up and move the entire village. That's a lot of effort. And then where you're going to go to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There had to be a really big reason to like just pack up everything and, okay, we're leaving now.
Right, and you got to remember they're used to them too. So, but to have this MEGASQUATCH or giant Bigfoot be so bold and step out away from the tree line where it would be naturally protected with the shading and the camouflage of the woods, and just stand there, being like a big predator watching perhaps its next prey. I mean, that's easy. That's easy to believe. A village say, well, what are you going to do against something like that? I mean, you can do nothing. I mean, even if you had modern day rifles, you'd probably just piss it off by shooting it. So, and I've run into those giant ones up here too. The one at the dunes, I'll get into that. But
let's do that one last. Let's get some of these other reports first. Like you referenced after the Bluff Creek one, the Nordegg one, which again, Nordegg, that's where Todd Standing has done a bunch of his research and stuff. That's, that general area kind of squatchy. But this was, as I understand, it was like 5 guys that were working on the dam, and they saw this thing come up on top of the ridge line and watch them for like 45 minutes. They saw it moving around. It sat down, it watched them for a while and stuff, and it finally got up and left. And after the workday was over, they went up there and took a look at the spot and everything.
Yeah, that's I think it started off with like 3 witnesses, then 5, and it didn't get spooked with more people showing up. It was just fully confident in itself that these men or whatever wasn't a threat to it, and exposed itself, so to speak, in daylight. And you got to think about that. I mean, it's one thing to, like I did at the dunes, catch something accidentally on purpose with a blind pan, but to purposely step out and let, I guess it's only known competitor or only known species that it would have some fear of, purposely let these 5 guys or 5 witnesses see it. I mean, you know, that speaks volumes for how bold these giant ones can be.
Yeah, there's the report over here from the Belt Creek, where in the 1970s, there's 3 airmen, and 2 of them had their kids with, and they were out camping, and the weather turned really, really bad. And they decided that they would just go back to the vehicle and get the heck out of there because it was just tremendously bad. And on their way back to the vehicle, the lightning's flashing and stuff, and they caught a couple glimpses of this huge thing, again, like 15 feet tall, sort of standing on the edge of the tree line watching them as they were making their way back to the truck. Well, then one of them decided to make the really bad, stupid decision to fire off a couple shots near it to, quote, scare it away, unquote. This does not have the desired effect. And the next thing you knew, it was charging them. And apparently the description of the witness was that this thing looked like a Mack truck coming at him. It was hideous. It was taking 40-foot steps, you know, like leaps. They had to get the vehicle up to like 50 miles an hour before they even started pulling away from it. And they were absolutely petrified. Now, they went and subsequently reported this sighting. One of them took a polygraph and passed it, and the other 2 backed up his account on paper. And all 3 of these guys were pilots, you know, Air Force, Malmstrom Air Force Base. So why would they risk destroying their careers to make up a fake story like that? Not to mention the fact the guy telling the story passed the lie detector test, too.
Yeah, well, you know, that goes back to all the, I guess, the ridicule factor that's built in from, I guess, misinformation about the Sasquatch, just, I don't know, for whatever reasons, political, religious, whatever, that gets behind it. Yeah, the giant ones are out there. What people mostly see are the 7-8 footers, like young adults, whatever, taking the most risks, most curious, you know, maybe a little cocky in their youth, you know, coming too close to people, campsites, whatever. But yeah, there's, going back to Ontario, there's like, even just looking at some of the comments on my videos, a 15-footer seen up near McDermott Tunnel, train tunnel, gray one. I've seen the light gray ones. They're almost white. Someone there, I think D. McCully, was going there to film something, maybe a ghost adventure or whatever he's into, I think. And he wasn't even set up, and he's seen this huge thing walk across the opposite end of this opening of this tunnel. And that's in 212. But
this was in the Sasquatch Lake Superior show, I think.
Yeah,
they recounted it. If you guys want to see that.
Yeah. I mean, and then I got that's a great documentary. Go check that out. But there's other ones. Like someone seeing a 15-footer chasing rabbits in a field, leaving huge prints and stuff like that. Other comments on my channel, and you know, I can't confirm. I don't know where to go to confirm these, but you get these people coming forward on my channel, because I do the history of Bigfooting as well as my own sightings. I talk about other people's sightings, and so I get these reports being handed or comments being handed, and you know, it's becoming a lot more common. These mega Bigfoot, mega Sasquatch, giant Sasquatch being seen. It's not just the rare report anymore. These things are starting to be noticed more often, and you know, in a way, it can be kind of concerning that these giants are coming so close to civilization that they're being spotted every now and again.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy because they've been so successful in being avoiding the gaze of humankind for so long. All of a sudden, you know, it's like they're practically letting themselves be seen, and you got to go, okay, what's changed that their behavior is changing all of a sudden?
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as my sightings before we get into the dunes is, they're just a lot of my pictures. I'm taking a picture of an area where I suspect they might be, but whenever I'm taking them, I'm hoping to get, maybe a regular height one, but sometimes I've 4 or 5 times now, I've caught these Sasquatch that are at least 14 feet high, and they're stepping out of the woods, or they're letting their whole body shape be seen. And, it's it's kind of unnerving. I don't want to know that there's King Kong in the woods watching me. I mean, I just want, I guess, I don't know, maybe a bit of a romantic. I want to catch the one eating berries and then walking away, not like Kong stepping.
I'm here to film Ewoks, not King Kong. King Kong, get out of the way. Where's the Ewoks? I want to film them.
I know, and so you're coming across these giant ones, and there's a lot more than people realize. It's very rare to catch them, and they don't make the mistakes of a younger one. But then I think I was mentioning this to you earlier, was they're so big that sometimes they just can't hide. They get in an area where there's just not enough cover for them because they're curious or something, or they step out from the deeper woods into a lighter tree line, and then you take a picture or you do a little bit of filming, and there's this huge hulking 15, 17 foot Sasquatch watching you with the head the size of a beach ball or whatever. And you're like, oh my God, what would stop that if it wanted to come over and do whatever? Nothing. You'd have to have a tank or something. Maybe an RPG or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, if anybody wants to make a GoFundMe, I'd like to have a Tiger II, old vintage World War II German tank for my mountain giant research. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, for the most part, that's the behavior that's been reported for decades, that they don't come out in the open, that the tribal elders knew there were the big ones out there that people didn't see because they were good at hiding. Well, then now why all of a sudden are they, it's not like they're starting to all of a sudden be, idiotic and screw up all the time. If people are seeing them, it's because they're letting themselves be seen by people. And why would they do that?
Well, I think, if we could talk a little bit about the history, I think they've adapted. That, first there were direct competitors with us, and now, sure, there's territorial disputes, but I think with each generation, they realized that, we're not the hunter-gatherers that we used to be, always going into their territories other than a couple weeks of deer season. So I think that's maybe changed their thought process on how to live with us, or, to accept us being in the woods for a weekend or something. But, if you were to go back in the 60s and do that, you'd be into a big territorial battle, perhaps like what happened to Bluff Creek, where they were tipping over all the equipment and throwing the drums around and leaving hundreds of prints up and down the road, letting themselves be known, scaring off all the workers. So
I know, but at least three reports here out of the Montana area of the same sort of thing happening that never got to be big news and spread all over the Bigfoot community, where there was like logging crews that were getting their equipment wrecked up by something gigantic. I think Wes had one on one of his shows where they had something had actually taken a huge boulder and like mushed the safety cage on top of a bulldozer with it. I had a report over here where there was 2 trucks that they were using for a logging operation. They were both smashed. One of them was like sitting on its frame on the ground, crushed like a wrecking ball had been dropped on it.
Wow. Jeez.
So that's not like Bigfoot, that's something even bigger than Bigfoot doing stuff like that.
Yeah, and the temperament behavior is all different than what we've learned from the reports. Unless, of course, you consider that whenever you run into that kind of temperament, there's no one left to report it, right?
Yeah, if there's humans around, I mean, you get reports from all over the world. I've referenced this one before from the gold mining operation that they had on going over there in Indonesia. They know the middle of the island has gold deposits, so they wanted to make a road into the middle of the island and make a big pit mine and start getting the gold out of it and whatnot. But on the same island, all the villagers are telling them, well, that's too close to where the giants have their underground city and they'll get mad. so maybe you shouldn't do that. And they're like, yeah, whatever, giants, sure. So they plowed this big road in, and then in the process of, they got in there and they started operations up just barely, and their big ass bulldozer broke. And this thing was a ginormous bulldozer. So rather than take the bulldozer and the blade back down the rickety road that they had just made to town, they loaded the bulldozer on a flatbed and left the blade of the bulldozer sitting there, and just took the bulldozer to town, brought it back again. So you're on this little island. The only thing that could even move this bulldozer or something that size is the truck the mining company owns that just took it back to town. So there isn't like any other vehicles on this island can be moving anything this size around, right? So when they get the bulldozer back from the repair and they bring it back and they go to put the blade on it, and the blade's not there. And they're like, where's the blade? Where's the blade for the bulldozer that we left right here out in the open where we detached it, and it's not here, and there isn't any other vehicles that could move this thing. And then they started looking around, they saw enormous tracks. And they followed the enormous tracks about 100 yards out into the jungle where the 10-ton bulldozer blade was sitting.
Wow.
10 tons, 20,000 pound. And there's a lot of witnesses that reported this. Everybody on the crew was all pretty much up in arms about this.
Wow. That would surely scare off some construction crew workers.
Yeah, you would think, other than the locals that are like, well, they might not be kind of happy about you making road any further. I wouldn't make road any further because they seem to be against that, judging by the way they walked off with a bulldozer blade.
So I got a question. Did the owner of the construction company go around and make fake 24-inch prints?
Yeah. No, he was making fake 36-inch prints. And he had a crew of 1,000 guys to move the 10-ton bulldozer blade 100 yards in the woods and not somehow leave any tracks that they had done it other than the giant fake ones.
You see, it's just a fake giant Bigfoot that's picking up these bulldozer blades and moving them. Yeah. I'll get back to work.
Well, that's sort of, again, this is like way the hell over there on the other side of the planet where this is going on, which backs up the fact that these things are in more than one place and people are having experiences, encounters in more than one place. But my question at this point is this actually Bigfoot? Because over there, it's a giant. They're convinced they're giants. Yeah, they're shaggy, kind of like Bigfoot, but they're smart and they have underground cities and some kind of technology, fire at least or something, you would presume. But it makes you wonder if the same thing over here, if these really gigantic squatch that people are seeing are actually really gigantic squatch, or if it's like one of the giant Nephilim branches like the Horium or something that were supposed to be like really shaggy, hairy giants, apparently.
Right. Well, I don't know. Wow. That's pretty scary stuff. I mean,
yeah, because Bigfoot, Sasquatch, hundreds of years of experience, thousands of years with the native tribes and stuff. Yes, some of them can be man-eaters, some of them can be bad-tempered, but mostly it's a live and live. You leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. Okay. Giants, it's not like that. All the stories about them are like they're evil, they eat humans, they're nasty, they're fault-tempered, they can't be trusted, blah, 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 blah. So, if you're out in the field as a researcher, you really kind of want to have a pretty good idea of if you're following a really big Bigfoot or if it's a friggin' giant.
Well, what I do, I think I mentioned this earlier to you, and is before I go into an area, I take recon pictures. And I look at what I'm getting into before I go over there. And if I see something that's been breaking trees that are 2 feet thick and making lots of X's and lots of other shapes in the woods and stuff like that, then I know that, okay, I'm not just hanging out with the regular size ones, but I mean, now I'm finding that they sort of just, they're mixed in. So you think you're communicating or researching with a 7-footer, but 10 feet behind him is a 15-footer watching you exchange wood knocks with a 7-foot young adult or something. And that's the scary aspect of not knowing that I guess a MEGASQUATCH is part of the same group or more than one. And at least up here anyways, I don't know what the people in the lower 48, but like at the dunes, I didn't know there was one that size in the tree line watching me. And just a quick backstory on the dunes was I found this area just kind of by accident, where I was researching in the area, and then I seen some broken sticks and some weird breaks and branches. So I just kind of followed the trail, and I discovered this old gravel dirt pit area that was, I guess, maybe used to be used for a construction company. And that's actually what it was. The owner passed away, and so for a time it was really quiet. And so I got in there, and I was finding prints of all sizes, baby prints running around near the edges, though nothing across the middle of the gravel pit. I was finding lots of your standard 14, 16-inch prints, lots of juvies, 10-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch. In one case, I found where their juvies were digging holes with sticks and left handprints, and there was like a 14-inch footprint around it. So that was really cool. But in this one particular case, I was in casting the prints. I found this huge heel print. Even the heel halfway up the foot, I think might have been like 10 inches, just half of it. So I was looking at that, and then and some other prints, and then I decided to do like a blind pan. I had to line it up, and then I did a blind pan of where, I bet you they're watching me from over there, and kind of thing. You just get some intuition about it. And so I did a blind pan, and on review of the blind pan, I seen this huge gorilla-shaped dark shadow standing out in the clearing at the edge of the I guess like a cliff or whatever it is, where all the digging stops. Mm-hmm. I guess on the opposite side of the dunes. And when I cropped it a bit, I went, oh my God, that's a giant Sasquatch right there. And I didn't realize how big he was until I went over there. And he was standing out away from the tree line. And this is midday, so the sun's right on him. There's nothing to cast the shadow of a giant Sasquatch. And that's what they look like when you catch them standing.
All right, so I put together this little short vid clip for Duke at World Bigfoot Central there, from my research at the dunes, and specifically the Lord of the Sasquatch dunes, giant 17-foot meg Sasquatch I caught with a pan watching me, and then I pulled still some of the footage. Anyway, let's have a look at some of those clips. Okay, now I'm not going to look. I'm going to tree line over there. I have to look to just quickly adjust. And I'm going to walk over here. And you can see an old road that leads back to the main area where the men work. And that's where they fill up, I guess. Right there. Alright, so this is a still that's pulled from that blind pan video. I cropped it and getting closer, and it gets fried a little bit, but once you've seen them, you know what you're looking at. You don't have to guess whether or not it's a shadow. That's a Sasquatch standing right there. You can see his muscles. You can see where his hair is thinner on his chest. And I went over there and I measured that tree he's standing beside, and you know what? He's only like 2 or 3 feet shorter, so that puts him in the range of 17 feet. Which makes him largest Sasquatch ever filmed. And I had a video on that like had almost 300,000 hits, but I pulled it because I'm working on a documentary. But anyway, here's some more clips coming from other pans. Who knows, maybe in the future, coming in here at dawn or at dusk, I could catch one crossing right in the middle of the open sandbar area and chase after it like Roger did. And then we have some more supporting evidence that they're not just in the mountains out west. Alright, tracker signing off for finding Sasquatch. Who knows, maybe in the future. Okay, so there's where the Sasquatch was. You can see there's no giant and meg Sasquatch standing there. The other thing about the dunes is I found lots of prints of all sizes, from baby up to giant ones. A lot of sand prints that weren't very detailed, but some of the giant ones, you need a wheelbarrow full of casting material to cast them, and then it'd just be a rough outline. But
of a giant Sasquatch, and that's what they look like when you catch them standing still, unless they're completely in the open somewhere. But they look like a really deep, dark, out of place shadow or something. I don't know if that's the best way to explain it. But so anyway, this giant Sasquatch is standing there watching me go back and forth on this mound on the opposite side of the gravel pit area, and I guess it may be a football field wide at some point. So he's 100 yards out or whatever, watching me from the opposite edge. And so I finally figured out where he was, because I thought, the size of this Sasquatch, he had to be closer. So what people don't realize is I did a bunch of experimental videos trying to figure out where he actually was. And then I learned from the tree he was standing beside, which had a V in it, that he was actually on the far side of the dunes, like at least 100 yards away or so. And then I went over there, and in the picture, he's only about 2 or 3 feet down from this V. And when I measured up to the V, I took my construction measuring tape. It's got, the big wide ones. And that V was 20 feet high. So this Sasquatch was around 17 feet, and that's being modest. I could say he was 18, but I'll just say 17 feet. And at the time, I was afraid to say, yeah, that's a 17-footer right there, because no one has ever heard of a 17-footer being filmed or a picture taken of before, other than a 15-foot up at Bighorn Dam.
Well, and then there's the Sasquatch on Lake Superior one, where the ghost hunting crew was just reconning this tunnel, waiting for the rest of the crew to show up so they could start filming, and he sees one walk by the far end of the tunnel. And if I recall, he said its head was only like a couple feet below the top of the tunnel, which again would put this thing in the same gigantic size range as what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, the tunnels are at least 20 feet high or whatever, and I watched that, and that was really interesting. And I guess it was a morning. He was trying to whip out his camera to get something, and he had to deal with morning the temperature change. So his camera all fogged up and everything, so he could fire off a shot, right? But I mean,
and the Bigfoot researchers watching this are all giggling, going, "Ha ha! Welcome to our world. Yeah, it isn't so easy, is it? Ha ha!" Yeah. Mr. Ghost Hunter, Bigfoot don't sit around and pose for you like ghosts do.
Yeah, or when you see a 2,000-pound Sasquatch moving, and it's not just a 6-inch wide tree in the wind either. I mean, there's something much more to it. It's just the cameras have a hard time focusing in on them because of the other things we discussed. But so I found giant prints. I didn't have enough casting material, and it's in sand anyway, so there's no detail, just in rough outline. But I did cast some. I think I showed you a picture of a cripplefoot one.
Yeah, that one's really weird looking. I don't know what to make of that thing.
Yeah, like the one toe is like 2 inches longer than the rest, and you can see the claws and everything. And I got that 2 casts of that in 2 different locations. So, but I mean, that was really weird. I mean, I'm really glad I pinned that on my wall in the Bigfoot barn there. But I mean, when you come across the giant ones, I mean, unless you have a trunk full of casting material, like literally like buckets, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, the things are like 2-3 feet long, or I guess, whatever the size of.
You're going to have a construction crew show up with a friggin' concrete truck to pour the cast for this thing? Give me a break.
Yeah, so, and you're there, and I guess from a viewer standpoint, you don't realize the fear factor that you're fighting off in the back of your mind. That, I'm unarmed. Besides that, even if you were armed, you wouldn't have a chance. Or if you weren't alone like me and unarmed. But I mean, you have to constantly master your fear when you're in situations like that, to get that cast or to take the pictures of that print when you're only like 6 feet from the tree line, one step away from something coming out and doing whatever, attacking you, hitting you, you know what I mean, carrying you off. And so, you're constantly fighting that fear factor. And then you find out that there's a King Kong in the woods watching you. And, I didn't really need to know that.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. I had that same feeling when I found that some of these gigantic structures, like that 60-foot tree structure, when we found that one, it was just like, I don't even want to stand here and take pictures of it. Let's just leave. That's way too creepy. You got 2 lodgepole pines made into an X structure. Each one weighs like 3 tons. Well, what's moving 6,000-pound objects around and playing, Lincoln logs with them? I don't want to find out. Let's leave.
Yeah, that's what happens in the real world. There's lots of armchair researchers, and no disrespect, but you get out in the woods, and it's bad enough, I guess, scary enough. And from that viewpoint, when I say bad, that you got a 7-8 footer that could, tear you limb from limb, right? Just the strength of them, right? And then you got something that's 15 feet or above that could literally probably tip over a train engine or some damn thing. And you're like, wow. And you start thinking, what am I doing here? Right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Like, researching is one thing, and, trying to get some footage or a picture or a cast to come back and show off your souvenir is another. But when you get into these situations where you literally have, a giant size Sasquatch, which, whatever Kong, whatever size kind of Bigfoot watching you, it makes you question, what am I doing out here then?
You literally fear for your life. You're like, why am I even doing this? I'm not getting like a huge paycheck. I'm not getting $1 million or something here. Why am I out here risking my life?
Yeah, exactly. And then, you're like, that's not even thinking about your time and your money and everything and all the repairs and all the stuff for your vehicles and constant equipment upgrade. You're out there going, wow, this could be like super, super dangerous. You can't defend yourself when you're talking creatures of that kind of strength. And I've heard some really, really powerful sounds coming from the woods. And I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you. I think I did a video on this, but I never expected a response. I was on a road that was getting new hydro poles in, kind of construction thing going on. They were plowing all the tree line down, expanding it wider to put in new telephone poles, hydro poles to run power. And so, I was just thinking, hey, this is kind of like Bluff Creek, right? New construction. I'm just going to get out and look for prints. So I got out. I walked up and down the sandbar area there, and I'm not seeing anything. Found some bear prints. I'm like, okay, I wonder if the Bigfoot would come out and check this out afterwards. And so then on the way back to my car, I picked up just a branch that was there, and I said, well, I'm just going to do this. What the hell? And I didn't have my audio on. My camera, I think, was just sitting on top of my car. Just, I was just taking a quick look, and I just give a quick little wood knock, just not even a very powerful one, on this down log. And then 30 seconds go by and nothing, right? So then I start heading back to my car. I'm 2 steps away from my car, 2 strides, and then I hear a huge tree being broken in half in the woods and behind a swampy area, like really close to where the hydro poles were going in. This thing snapped a tree of good size in half, whatever it was. And it was so loud. It was like someone...
my camera on a big log. Stumps right behind me. I just filmed the clip there. Pulled off the side of the road, seen a muddy area left behind by hydro workers clearing trees for new lines. Just did a wood knock off this log. 5 minutes later, heard the loudest wood bash I've ever heard, other than one that was really loud because it was so close to me on a trail, like within 10 yards or so. But whatever made that must have been huge. It was louder than a shotgun that was beside me, like a whatever distance. Came from the trees. Behind the trees, there's a marsh area, and then there's more than an island or more land. It came from the other side at that distance, which might have caused a little bit of echoing. but whatever made that that huge, that unbelievable loud wood knock, wood bash must have been huge. So pretty awesome. I don't usually get excited about wood knocks. I hear taps and stuff all the time. But that was definitely a loud adult responding to my wood knock at 9 o'clock in the morning. Pretty awesome.
Loud. It was like someone shooting a shotgun off beside your ear, but it was coming from the woods.
No. Whoa. So, yeah. So you got an answer to your wood knock.
Yeah, I got too much.
Yeah. That was sort of a strong answer. Go away, human. Yeah, okay, I'm gone.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I'm like expecting, maybe a juvie to give me one across. I was actually expecting a wood knock from across the road, a little further up, where there was a hydro cut, and I've gotten activity in there. And like I said, I just noticed they're putting in these new telephone power poles, whatever. And I just wanted to check it because it was fresh dirt, right? Fresh, nice, soft dirt, great for prints. And then, I hear something snap a tree in half like a toothpick, and the sound just cracked through the woods. And actually, when I got in my car, after there was nothing else, I fired up all my equipment, right? And I did another one, waiting for a second opportunity to record this. And nothing happened. But I was stopped on the way out by, I think, once or twice. By other residents, they might have a hunting camp or whatever. And they asked me, did you hear that? What was that? And so this sound traveled for whatever miles, and people were stopping me on this dirt road 5-10 minutes later, asking me if that was me that made that sound, or what was that huge sound they heard.
God, yeah, it must have been pretty obvious then.
Well, the people there had no clue there's Sasquatch in the woods behind their cottages, right? So
yeah, probably better out that they don't.
Yeah, so I just said, no, that wasn't me. Not me. That was something else, I guess. I don't know. And then so they I was stopped twice, I think. I think maybe a walker and someone in a car flagged me down and wanted to know what that huge sound was. And, I'm trying to secretly do some research in their area, so I didn't want to tell them what I knew it was.
Well, I did a wood knock, and your local Bigfoot snapped a tree in half. He's probably pretty mad now. I'm leaving the area. Bye.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that. I'm going to leave. I'm out of here. Bye.
I challenged him to a territorial, and now I'm abandoning the cause.
Here's the actual branch I used for the wood knock. Hold on to this one.
Yeah, hold on to this evidence so the Sasquatch identified you with the person that disturbed it.
Well, I make a clean escape. Thank you.
Yeah, and that was really quite shocking to hear something that powerful. I don't know if people can imagine that, but when you hear something like maybe a jet going over and it vibrates in your core, your body, and your ribs and stuff like that, like the power of it, and that's what it was like. I mean, you're just shocked. I mean, you expect to hear something, hopefully, but when you hear something of that magnitude, you're just shocked by it. It's just, oh my God, how can things like that exist without everybody knowing, kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to see a little one run across the road, but when you got these gigantic ones with all that power, they can snap trees in half, living in close to cottages and hunting camps and everything else, and avoiding people because, they're smart enough to wait for dark to move around. And, it just makes you a little bit fearsome of walking around in the woods knowing that you're prey.
Especially right? At night, where every advantage is on their side and we have none. That's just, I will occasionally go out and do nighttime stuff too, and it's just like friggin' really dangerous. And I don't think people should be doing that very often, unless you had a good compelling reason for it. All these, TV shows you see, well, let's go out and do a night patrol. Yeah, you're filming the night patrol in the local town park. You're not actually out in the woods doing it.
It's not like where I am, where,
Don't get the idea that this is for real. They're not really out there in the middle of Dogman Central walking around in the dark with shotguns. They're in like some friggin' park somewhere filming this stuff.
Yeah. They got finding Bigfoot from being 100 meters from, they had to be 100 meters from the trailer. That was written into the contract from the guys that did all the filming and stuff. So 100 meters, yeah, okay. But anyway, wow, yeah. I got the footage of the giant one, and I posted pictures. I sent you that, and when I zoom in, yeah, the fried a bit, but you can see the muscle mass on its chest. You can see where the hair is thinner on its greasy gray skin, and then you got obviously the big outline of the class 1 Sasquatch. It looks like a 17-foot hair-colored Hulk, and so I went back. I went over there, and eventually I had to work up to it. But I went back and I did a follow-up to that. And I filmed over there, and I said, see, there's nothing beside the tree now. But while I was doing that, a friggin' huge Sasquatch, maybe the same one, was peeking at me through the branches. Another one. And it was ducking down to the 10-foot height to watch what I was doing again on the opposite side of the dunes.
That area sounds dangerous. It's probably just better to not go there. They're very curious, and they're huge.
Well, what happened was, I've had lots of viewers, commenters ask me why, what's going on with the dunes, go back and film that giant one again, go hunt them down, Blaine, go get them, stuff like that, right? But what happened was the sons of the father that passed away, they eventually took over the construction business, and the quarry became active again, them pulling sand and gravel out there for the road construction or whatever, building foundations or something. So the activity fizzled off as far as prints and everything at the dunes. And that was sad. I almost got caught trespassing there once, and I had to actually hide with the Sasquatch from the guys on quads looking for me. So I had to grab my castings in a hurry. I heard them unloading and firing up their quads from the truck, and I had a whole bunch of castings setting, and had to quickly round up my gear, grab my knife. I popped 2 out, and then I had to jump in the bush right where I knew Sasquatch were probably in there watching me, being all curious about me, and I had to hide my backpack, and I waited for a couple of them to go ripping by, because my car was way back on the county road, and I usually walk in. But, you're out in the county, you see a strange car, people get suspicious, right? So I'm actually hiding with the Sasquatch, and then I stumble across a little shelter, kind of rough shelter, where they bent a bunch of trees over. Maybe the juvies were just practicing. And then I had to go get my other 2 castings that were further up, but I had to stay in the tree line. So I had to kind of walk amongst them where they're probably hiding on me, right close range. And then as soon as the last quadra went by, I jumped out and I plucked the last 2 prints casts out of the sand, and then jumped back in the bush and packed them up into my backpack. And I started hiking out the long way and around to my car to get out of there before I was caught. So that's another story I never actually told anybody. But it's really, it helps me that it's really under the radar up here.
Yeah.
People, well, what's he doing? I think everyone mistakes me for a hunter, or a hunter scoping out someone else's territory, and that's what they all fear. And then sometimes I talk to them, like if it's a logger or hunters or whatever, they just own the property. I say, no, I'm not a hunter. I don't even have a wood stove. I'm not here harvesting wood or hunting. I usually pull out my Canon T5 and say I'm a photographer. I'm just out wildlife photography, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's got me out of trouble, just whipping out the other camera, which I don't always use because it's really bulky for moving fast. And it takes a while to aim it. And we talked about switching over to manual aim, try to get better pictures of the Sasquatch. But so yeah, that's how things wrapped up at the dunes. The Suns took it over. Activity died off. I got chased out of there, and
well, if they're using it for an active gravel pit, there's probably not the Bigfoot hanging around there anymore anyway, then.
Well, they probably watch a little bit, but they're not letting their little ones run around the sand and, like within 50 feet of the tree line kind of thing, and or whatever, you know what I mean? All the prints I found were in like these little kind of isolated pockets where there wasn't any heavy activity from the machines. So that's the only place that I found prints. And then I filmed 3 trackways going up an incline, a steep incline in the sand, and it was really hard to document it because I had to step sideways up the side of the bank, and I could only go like a foot at a time, and the trackway in the middle, I think I sent you a picture of that, was 3-4 feet apart each stride going uphill in deep sand. I'm like, wow, that's
big boy. Yeah, you got a good picture of that.
Yeah, and I got a video of that, and I took pictures. I'm pointing at it, and I'm filming it. And I think in the wintertime, the same kind of area, that's where I got one of those cripple cast prints from. And it was the incline was so steep, the tape measure wouldn't stay in place to give an accurate measure between the strides. So I had to kind of lay it sideways and just go to the other track. But yeah, it was great activity there. I mean, I got lots of wood knocks and some calls. And actually, we talked about this before once. I took my wife in there once, just, she wanted to know why I was so hung up on going there. And, I go in there and I get like, a couple wood knocks when I show up, and then they see me leaving and probably didn't want me to leave or whatever, and they give me a couple more. I brought my wife out there, and they were wood knocking constantly. Huh. So I think Bigfoot is sexist.
Or they think your wife is sexy, one or the other.
Yeah. And actually, you know what? I got scared about that afterwards. I'm like, wow, that's a little bit too much. I mean, would knock here and there just to let me know they're around, to, hey, baby, kind of wood knocks or whatever's going on.
They're like, yeah, bring some more pretty ladies out here. We'll wood knock all day long for you.
Yeah. So that's the last time I brought her out, because I just went to berserkle because I brought out a female, and and that makes me wonder and makes me actually believe all the lore from the First Nations about their women being abducted and their children or whatever. Because I mean, if I see them, how they react to just one time, can you imagine if they had opportunity to prowl around a First Nation village, and whenever a couple females would go to the river to wash up or gather water, and they never come back? Yeah, I can see that happening.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I definitely can see that happening. It's not lore, and all these missing people and stuff. I mean, how easy would it be for a Bigfoot, with all their tricks and all their advantages over us, to scoop up somebody, scoop up a woman, scoop up even a big guy, and it's worth nothing to them. They got like monkey power, right? I mean, like even
they're huge. Even say average Squatch got fingers like the size of Twinkies and hands like catcher's mitts.
Well, it's not just that. It's just their muscle density is so much greater than ours that 100-pound Sasquatch, it could easily kill a 250-pound bodybuilder, or whatever you want to say. A 50-pound Sasquatch has got the strength of a 250-pound bodybuilder, or whatever, you know what I mean? And they're just that much stronger. So then when you multiply their size and their weight and everything, we don't have a chance. I mean, you can understand, the Fred Beck stories of the Ape Canyon attack, of them shooting the Sasquatch and then getting back up and kept running after they got clipped in the head or something. And I mean, I know they dropped one over the side of a cliff, but there was another part of that story where they shot one and they got back up and kept running after taking a bullet in the head. And you're wondering why we don't have bodies. Well, first off, if you're lucky to get a shot off, and you're lucky to get a clean shot, if you can actually see it, is there going to be enough stopping power for something the size of a rhino, but on 2 legs or something? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to have there's just so many things would have to fall in line for you to get a lucky shot with a big game rifle that could actually knock one down. And then how are you going to get the body out and show it to anybody?
How are you going to get the body away from the rest of the clan members?
Yeah, exactly.
They got a social structure. And so now they've just lost one. They're upset. And what, you're going to go in there and start cutting off fingers or something when you got 1,000-pound Sasquatch, multiple of whatever size, all standing around growling at you? You're not getting at it. I mean, they were growling, they were howling at Paul Freeman for just getting too close to a female, picking up the kid on the path. And he was pinned down for 2 hours just videoing them. So can you imagine trying to drag a body or part of a body away from where others are. I mean, you would never get out. You would never get out of the woods.
You'd just be dead. And I think that's what happens to some of these crazy guys that are out there going, I'm going to shoot Bigfoot and make $1 million. And
yeah, I mean, yeah, they're just, you know, I'm not saying I know more than other people. Other people know more than me, but they don't realize what they're up against when they're making these claims that they're going to go shoot one. I mean, it's almost an impossible task. And so what I did was a couple of summers ago, I started doing a lot of research around railroads, and I ended up getting a clip of a big one and a little one moving its arms, trying to hide behind a tree. I don't know if you ever seen that footage.
mm-hmm.
Gray colored hair, and you can see the juvie that it's holding, reaching down, playing with a leaf. You can see an adult ducking, and then it's just general movement of in this tree area that I shot off a railroad that I would just park way back at the crossing, and then I just hiked the railroads because, you know, I was just, you know, thinking, well, look at all this area where no one goes, and they have access to cross swampy water using the railways and whatever, the hydros. And so I just decided to start checking out the railroads, and I guess the extreme hope of, hey, maybe there's a finger or a bone laying somewhere from a collision, you know, one jumping in front of it or being clipped, and then they left behind a little body part that they didn't really care about. They're just bringing home the injured Sasquatch, and maybe there was a toe or something kind of thing left behind from a trained Sasquatch kind of collision. And so, you know, that's the extreme hope, you know, bringing home a part of a specimen, right? And that's really what I'm after. All my videos, that's just bonus for me. I mean, I like filming them. I like the challenge of filming them, but that's just the kind of a bonus one I'm really after, to bring back, I guess, part of a specimen, but I'm not going to shoot one. I'll bring back one that's been killed by a train or something like that, or left, you know, part of a foot left behind. But yeah, I mean, I talked about that with Dr. Bindernagel, and he was indicating that, yeah, footage is good, but we need something to put on to examine under a microscope kind of thing, you know, scientist figure.
Well, yeah, again, you know, getting back to, does Bigfoot steal native women? Well, according to the Ketchum DNA study, it kind of looks like they do. So, you know, that sort of backs up that legend there again.
So I told the one guy, you know, one of those giant ones or big ones could flip your truck, and then he said, "Don't tell me this. I got to go to the potty." You know, they're still using the outside washrooms, the portal potties, or the you know, the outhouses with the. Yeah. And he didn't want to know because at night he has to go out and use that, right? And I said, well, I had to show you that they're here, right? So, but hey, buddy, it's been a pleasure being on your show. Thanks for having me back on.
Oh, it's been great having you back on the show again, Blaine. I'm sure we'll have you on here again at some point in the future. And thanks for taking all the time and effort to dig up all the really cool pictures and the video and everything you sent along for the show. Really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
So make sure
man. I look
kind
forward
to
it.
Safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people if you don't have to be. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the Puckwudgie. And for God's sake, whatever you do not hug the Wookiee. See you later, folks.